Genesis chapter 21, starting in verse 22. At that time Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, said to Abraham, God is with you in all you do. Therefore swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me, nor with my descendants, or with my prosperity. But as I have dealt kindly with you, so you will deal with me and with the land where you have sojourned. And Abraham said, I swear. When Abraham reproved Abimelech about a well of water that Abimelech's servants had seized, Abimelech said, I do not know who has done this thing. You did not tell me, and I have not heard of it until today. So Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a covenant. Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock apart, and Abimelech said to Abraham, What is the meaning of the 7 ewe lambs that you have set apart? He said, These 7 ewe lambs you will take from my hand, that this may be a witness for me that I dug this well. Therefore the place was called Beersheba, because there both of them swore an oath. So they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech and Phicol, commander of his army, rose up and returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned many days in the land of the Philistines. And the name Beersheba means well of 7, or well of oath. We see here Abimelech come back on the scene. Now Abimelech, we saw back in chapter 20, that Abraham had done to Abimelech the same thing that he had done down in Egypt. He was telling a half-truth about Sarah being his sister. When Abimelech discovers the truth, he's not happy about it. But yet, there is one difference. When Abraham lied down in Egypt, he was kind of like, don't come back here type thing. But when it happened with Abimelech, Abraham is used by God to pray for Abimelech that the curse, if you will, would be lifted from Abimelech's house, that they could bear children once again, that the women could, and that they would be able to bear children. And because of this, there also seems to be some type of almost, maybe it's not quite a fondness, but there is a relationship and a common bond between Abimelech and Abraham. They live in a country or area that is similar in geography, very close to one another. They are neighbors to an extent. And Abimelech comes to him because he knows Abraham's powerful, and he knows Abraham has had a son in his old age. He may even know something of the promise. Maybe he doesn't, but he knows that Abraham is sojourning in this land. And he makes a covenant. He does not want Abraham or Abraham's descendants to come and start trying to wipe out his people. Now I don't know if it's completely clear whether Abimelech was a Philistine or not, but he did go back to the land of the Philistines. And Abraham sojourned many days in the land of the Philistines. And they have a covenant, they have a treaty here at Beersheba. And there also is a dispute about the well, and Abimelech claims he never heard about it before because Abraham did not tell him, but he makes it right. They make a covenant there, and Abraham promises not to attack Abimelech's people. It's interesting that Abraham was that powerful that a king comes to him along with his general, the commander of his army, to make this treaty. And Abraham makes it. Abraham's life, by the way, is one that we constantly see of sojourning. Abraham did not put down roots anywhere, really. He pitched his tent here, he pitched his tent there for a while. He followed the Lord, and he did have great wealth. He had herds and things. He was able to move his business around. He had a personal security force. He was a very wealthy man. But regardless of the wealth side, it's kind of interesting that while Abraham was that wealthy, he continues to live a sojourning life. God did not call Abraham to put down roots and establish a permanent home. He called him to a life of sojourning. He told him that his descendants will one day end up slaves, and that then they will return and claim this land that he has shown Abraham. He's even sent Abraham to hike through the country and see this bountiful, beautiful land that God's going to give them. It's interesting to me and a very powerful reminder as well that in our lives there are seasons where God does call us to put down roots, but there's also seasons in our lives. And for some of us, it may be our entire life that God has called us to live in such a way that we are sojourners. I think, for example, of missionaries that God has called to literally go from place to place to place their entire lives, taking the gospel. I think of Paul. He did spend a long time that way traveling, but prior to that, he spent time having some deep roots in Jerusalem, it appears, for a number of years before he became a Christian, and then deep roots in Tarsus, deep roots in Antioch, multiple years of ministry and life there and business there in his career, in his trade. God can call us to both seasons. The key is, are we being obedient to the season God has put us in? And we also need to be cautious, I think, in how our treaties are. Now, Abraham made some covenants, and Scripture does not rebuke them here. So there's no reason to believe there's anything wrong with them. There's other places where Scripture clearly speaks against the covenant that somebody made without God's approval. So I think we need to be cautious by way of application of this passage, cautious in what treaties we make, but also understanding God may call us to make some agreements as we are journeying through the land, as we are moving to these different places. God may even give us some alliances, if you will, some partnerships with others who may not be just like us. Was Abimelech a Christian? Well, we really have, I don't think, a very clear indication. There seems to be some indication that Abimelech feared God, so perhaps he is to a degree. But his descendants, it does not appear, will be, if they are in the land of the Philistines. So I know it is kind of, it's an abstract way to look at our passage today and how to apply it. But in our lives, perhaps the Lord will call us to a season of sojourning, and if we are, will we conduct ourselves in a godly way in our dealings, in our business dealings, in our treaties, so to speak, our covenants, our agreements with those that we do life with and are living among. It is an application for us to think of as Christians, because ultimately, none of us really have our home here on this earth. Our ultimate home is heaven. And so really, for the Christian, all of our dealings need to be dealt with through this lens of, I'm a temporary resident here, I'm a pilgrim. What's my testimony among the people? It's something we need to think of. Father, I pray you help us to apply that and continue to guide us daily in our walk with you.